So recently, if you didn't know, I just started a new personal hobby. And that is collecting vintage Macs and their accessories. Yay! Virgin for life. So, if there's a computer or computer accessory with the Apple logo on it, I want it now! So, in this new series on my vlogging channel, I'm gonna be showing off my vintage Macs and Mac accessories collection. So let's get right into it. First up is my PowerBook G4 lid. I kept it after I destroyed the PowerBook G4 several years back because I thought it would have been a nice keepsake. And I thought it would be nice to have something to stick any sticker I receive on. What? This shouldn't be in the collection? Alright, moving on. Alright, next up. This is a white polycarbonate MacBook I got from Goodwill for $8. As you can see, yeah, the price tag is still on. And it's a bit busted because I wanted to destroy this one too. Man, people who take collecting vintage Macs seriously are gonna hate me. But can you blame me? This thing has no hard drive, no RAM, no battery, and it's covered in a bunch of stickers that I just don't feel like peeling off. So it was basically asking for me to finish it off. Alright, I'm done joking around. For reals this time. Now, here are the Macs I bought for the purpose of collecting them. Starting now. First up is my 2008 aluminum MacBook. I bought it from a seller on an app called OfferUp. He wanted $30, but I talked him down to $25, which is a really good deal for this MacBook. It runs perfectly with no problems, and I installed Mac OS X 10.11 El Capitan on it, the max OS it can run. It also came with its original battery, and surprisingly, it can still hold a charge. Also, it's probably one of the last MacBook models to have an easily removable battery, hard drive, and RAM. The design is still pretty modern, so if I have to use this thing right now for simple tasks, like web browsing, I wouldn't mind too much. Second is my other white polycarbonate MacBook, also from 2008. The same seller who I went to for the aluminum MacBook also was selling this, but I passed up on it until the aluminum MacBook inspired me to want to start a vintage Mac collection. So, the very next day, I went back to the seller to buy this one too. He also wanted $30 for this one, but I talked him down to $20. Another amazing deal. Anyway, this MacBook also runs fine, and it did also come with a battery, but it was swung up so badly, so I had to get rid of the battery for my own safety. But before I got rid of the battery, I ripped off the bottom of the battery and taped it to the bottom of this MacBook so it would look normal. It works fine, but as long as you keep it plugged in. It's a shame that Apple made it more obsolete than its aluminum counterpart by making 10.6 Snow Leopard the max OS it can run. I am also desperately looking for its black counterpart, so is there anyone in Flagstaff that has one and willing to sell it for cheap? Next up is the oldest Mac I own so far, which is the Power Macintosh G4. Quicksilver. I love that power button light. And the classic Happy Mac startup screen. I got it at Goodwill for $50, and I'll talk about the matching Apple Studio display I got for it later. It came with Mac OS X 10.1 Puma, which is pretty cool to play around with to see how much Mac OS has changed over the years. So I don't think I'll try to upgrade the OS on this thing. It can also easily be opened up from the side by this grabber that looks like a condom. for easy upgrades. Those were the days. But can someone tell me what's this thing installed inside of the computer? I should mention that this thing was sitting inside a Goodwill for about a month before I got it. Luckily. Funny thing is that I saw this thing twice in Goodwill and passed on it both times. And if it weren't for the previous MacBooks inspiring me to collect vintage Macs, I wouldn't have picked this up, and someone else probably would have taken this beautiful machine. It looks great, especially when my heater sits on top of it. Aesthetics. It also runs perfectly fine, which I was not expecting. But this thing has had a few problems that I had to fix. Can we also talk about this Apple Studio display for a second? I love it, because the thing only has one cord for both power and video. Why can't we do this today? I was not expecting this one to be this heavy. The iMac G4. Some people called it the Sunflower iMac. I love that name, and I can see why. And the design of this Mac is my absolute favorite so far. I got this iMac G4 from a seller on OfferUp. He wanted $100 for it, but it wasn't selling, so I offered and got it for $70. It's my favorite design because, well, just look how unique it is. It's also fun just to mess around with. Wee. It runs fine with the Max OS it can run, 10.5 Leopard. This thing also came with its original keyboard and mouse, which were filthy, along with the computer itself, before I cleaned them up. The mouse is pretty wonky though. Sometimes it won't even pick up movement, other times it's really jittery. I can safely say that this computer was the dirtiest Mac I got so far, before I cleaned it up. I wish I had taken some before and after photos though. But, as you can see, it cleaned up nicely. Plus, this was the vintage Mac I've always wanted when I was younger. Now, I have this sexy thing. I think I'm starting to develop muscles by carrying these vintage Macs. Why is this last one so big? Lastly for this episode, this is my Power Mac G5. This thing is a beast, running 10.4 Tiger. I got it from a seller, also from OfferUp, for $145. But wait, that's overpriced, right? Well, it did come with the monitor that was meant for the Power Mac G4, the Apple Studio display, and another Apple keyboard. I'll be honest, the keyboard that came with the iMac G4 was way too dirty for me to clean, and the keyboard that came with the Power Mac G5 was in pretty good condition, so I just threw the dirty iMac G4 keyboard into the box and cleaned the Power Mac G5 keyboard for use with these old Macs. The guy who sold me this beast also helped me carry it out to my car, which was parked a bit far, so I tipped him $5 for the total of $145. Also, the monitor and keyboard boxes, which are probably pretty rare, were included. I got some use out of the Studio display box for keeping my vintage Mac accessories in. I'll be honest for a second, this Mac is my least favorite so far. What the hell? I did not plan that. I swear on my life, I did not Photoshop it or edit it to do that. It's the first time it's done that ever since I got it. This is hilarious. There could have not been a more perfect time for that to happen. I mean, I love the industrial modern design, but it's so loud. The fans are loud, and when I do anything on this computer, you can hear the hard drive working away. This computer also smells, probably because it was from a smoker's home, and it was full of dust when I got it. So I was inspired to buy a can of compressed air to try to get rid of the dust and smell. It helped a little bit, but you can still smell cigarettes if you sniff close enough to it. Ah, I got cancer now! And yeah, this one can be open too for easy upgradability. I also probably overpaid for this Power Mac G5. Cause about a week later, I found one in a campus surplus store for $50. Oh well, the boxes that came with the cigarette-smelling computer are cool though. Oh wait, I forgot to talk about the matching Apple Cinema display monitor next to it. It didn't come with the computer, but before I left to pick up the Power Mac G5, I checked out a local super pawn and they had this cinema display for sale. So I just knew I had to get it for the Power Mac G5 I was about to pick up. They were asking for $75, but I managed to talk them down to $60 plus tax. I don't think I'll use this monitor much, to be honest, for my vintage Macs. Because unlike the Apple Studio display I picked up after the Apple Cinema display, it has a mess of cords that I have to plug into the computer, and also it needs to be plugged in along with the computer with this power supply to power it. Disgusting, especially when the Apple Studio display only needs one cord for both video and power. This is what going backwards in time looks like. Hey guys, so I hope you enjoyed the first episode of my vintage Mac collection. I have gotten more vintage Macs after the Power Mac G5, but I think I'm only going to show off 5 Macs per episode of this series. I don't know when the next episode will be out. It obviously depends on how many vintage Macs I can find locally. I don't do any of that eBay shit. With that said, thank you guys for watching, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later to show off more of my virginity protection. Bye! I should mention that I haven't formatted all of my vintage Mac's hard drives yet, because most of them require old Mac OS X install disks, which I never got. So hopefully, none of them have CP on them, unlike my personal Mac. Well, I'm getting put on a watch list for that joke. Oh well. Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of my vintage Mac collection. I'll be honest, this time the Macs that will be featured in this video aren't that interesting nor that old. But this time I have way more vintage Mac accessories that I want to show off. Those will be at the end of the video, but for now, let's take a look at the 5 Macs first. Let's get right into it. In the order I received them since the last video, first up is my 2005 iMac G5 20-inch. And it's running Mac OS X 10.5 Leopard. I got it from my local college's surplus store. If you have a college in your town, I highly suggest checking out if they have a surplus store. Because I got this working iMac G5 for only $25. This was the last, mostly plastic iMac Apple released before going full aluminum. I'll be honest, I like the look of plastic better than aluminum for my vintage Macs, but I prefer aluminum for the Macs I actually use daily. I remember using this exact model in middle school and discovered that these things are dangerous. Just look what happened when I got bored in middle school. Look at that cut. Imagine if that was your finger. Dangerous. Next up is my 2008 iMac 24-inch. I also got it at my local college's surplus store for $15. Why is it so cheap? Well, because it doesn't work. I would prefer for all my vintage Macs to be fully working, but for that cheap, I really don't care. Also, I doubt I'll be using any of my vintage Macs much for actual work and will just be displaying them. So I really don't care if they work or not. The surplus store said it won't boot and they took out the hard drive. And when I try to turn it on, it only does this. Yep, that's it. Here's my attempt to fix it. Looking good. And when I plugged in a keyboard and pressed eject, this came out. A homemade 10.7 line disc. Looks like they tried. Next up is my 2009 unibody plastic MacBook. Once again, I got it at my local college's surplus store for $75. I'm pretty sure this was the last mostly plastic laptop and one of the last mostly plastic computers Apple released. The surplus store also updated it to the newest OS possible, Mac OS 10.13 High Sierra, which surprisingly this laptop supports. So, I don't know if I can call this vintage. Apple does though. It is pretty slow running the newest Mac OS, but it is expected when it has an old spinning hard drive and only 2 gigabytes of RAM. I do love the rounded design of it though, but I hate how Apple decided to make the whole bottom of the laptop rubber, so the entire bottom gets dirtier and dirtier over time. The bottom of this MacBook was also infamous for randomly warping. Also, when I got it, it was covered in the college's stickers. I nearly killed myself, not by accident, trying to get them off with rubbing alcohol and a metal scraper, which I accidentally deep scratched the MacBook with. That event inspired me to buy some WD-40, which I didn't know it was something I desperately needed in my life. Next to last will be another Power Mac G5? Nope, it's a 2007 Mac Pro. It is very similar looking to the Power Mac G5, which was why I was hesitant to buy it for $75. And what a surprise that, again, I got at my local college's surplus store. Wow! I'm pretty sure they don't like me there. All the computers there are wiped before they are sold, and this one is no exception. It is running Mac OS X 10.5 Leopard, and I haven't set it up yet just because I like to watch the Leopard welcome video every time it boots. Fine, let's set it up. Done. Moving on. And finally, this time not from my local college campus surplus store, my 1999 Power Mac G4, which is my new oldest Mac. Also, I hate this hobby. Another Power Mac G4. This one's from 2001. They are both running Mac OS X 10.1 Puma, and I got them both from Savers for the low price of only $7 each, which is why I bought both, despite them being very similar to each other. One difference that I hate on the 1999 model is that it only outputs through VGA. And I'm too proud to buy a non-Apple branded monitor that supports VGA. The only way I can show this thing booting up is to use the TV in my parents' room, cause it's the only thing in this house that supports VGA. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this computer. Thankfully, the other one has a DVI input. So, it goes nicely with my studio display. Okay, loud. So I'm definitely a bigger fan of this one and not this one as much. I looked through both of them, and it turns out that both of these were from the college I got the other Macs from. How convenient to the reoccurring theme of this video. I googled the username on the computer, and it was used by a professor at that college. The 2001 model has photos on the hard drive showing that it was used up until 2010. Judging by his history, looks like he tried to upgrade in 2010. And that does it for the Mac computers. Now, let's take a look at some vintage Mac accessories. iMac G3 Bondi Blue Keyboard. I bought it from a local thrift shop for $3 when I saw it sitting in the work area, and I begged them to sell it to me. Now, I just need a Bondi Blue iMac G3 and a puck mouse to go with it. Mac box set I got at Savers. It includes iWork 09, iLife 09, and Mac OS X Snow Leopard. Good deal for $5. Magic Keyboard I got at Savers for $3. Don't get too excited now. It was missing 2 keys and the battery cover. I tested it with parts from my own Magic Keyboard and it works. So it makes a nice backup, you know, just in case. I got it mostly just because it came with the original box. An old Apple remote. Apple included these with several older iMacs and MacBooks, so that's why I wanted it for the collection. It was from Goodwill for $1 and it still works with the battery it came with. An older Airport Extreme. I may have taken it too far when I said I wanted anything with the Apple logo for my collection. I got it from an offer-up seller, but this wasn't the thing I went to him for. While he was searching for the thing I wanted to buy, I brought up that I wanted anything with an Apple logo on it, and he asked me if I wanted this for $15, which I talked him down to $10 for. Hell yeah! Probably never gonna use it. Speaking of that offer-up seller, I originally went to him to buy some iBook install discs. He wanted $10 for these, but I talked him down to $4. When I got there, he took forever to find them, and I was waiting outside his house while it was really cold. He couldn't find them, so he told me he would just give them to me for free when he does. And he did! This is everything that was inside this ragged sleeve. What iBook did these discs come with? Does anybody know? Let's put some of these discs inside of a newer Apple laptop and see what happens. Worldbook Macintosh Edition. I think the disk drive on this MacBook is broken. Thanks, College Surplus Store! This is my 2011 MacBook Pro, which used to be my daily driver, and it's also running High Sierra. Looks like it will come in use once again. Worldbook. Worldbook, Worldbook, Worldbook. Alright, it's on the desktop. There's a user guide. Ooh, very 90s or early 2000s. Can we open up the Worldbook installer? You can't open the application Worldbook installer because the classic environment is no longer supported. Damn. Eject. How about Apple Care Protection Plan? What does the CD do? I don't know. Bunch of stuff in here. I don't know what to click on. Disk First Aid. Classic environment is no longer supported. And finally, let's try the iBook software install. Installing Mac OS 9 PDF. Ooh. Beautiful. Mac OS install. Classic environment is no longer supported. And that does it for this episode of My Vintage Mac Collection. This video has gone on for way too long, so I'm gonna end it now. Thank you guys for watching, comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for episode 3, which I know will happen because my new addiction is now in control of my vlog channel. Bye. But before I go, I want to give a quick tour of my office now that I have my new vintage Macs on display. Alright, entering the office, first you'll see the iMac G4 on top of the Power Mac G4 Quicksilver. Little thing right there. Hi. Then next to it on top of the table, you see a stack of MacBooks with some books on top of it. And then next to that, we have one of the original Power Mac G4s with a Dyson Supreme on top of it. Then moving right along right here, this is a Power Mac G5, and on top of it is an iMac G5. little nod to the show I like. And then next to that, next to each other, is the Mac Pro, and on top of it is the non-working iMac. And yeah, then next to that is a little desk stand, which is a Power Mac G4, and just some cups. Gotta support the show more, and yeah, I just like to put some of these Macs to good use. So yeah, I think that concludes the end of... Wait, what the... When did I get an Xbox? Game is it? Welcome to a brand new episode of Mac Review! See, Mom? I told you I'm a virgin. I watch PewDiePie and I collect vintage Macs. Hey guys, so finally the third episode of my vintage Mac collection is out. And for some reason, it's the only series of videos where I film at night. I said that I would release this episode sometime in July, and it's July 31st right now, so I still kept my promise! How do I still have fans? Speaking of which, if you're a young fan or subscribed because of the Jake Paul concert or TanaCon video and don't know what these ancient things are, well, you know the company that made your iPhone? Apple? They also make computers! And I'm gonna show off their older desktops and laptops on this episode of my vintage Mac collection. Approved by TechSmart. First up is my 2003 eMac that I got for free. And how did I get it for free? Well, I'll talk about that later. This computer was meant for the education market, hence the E in its name, and it's the last CRT computer Apple made. And when I plug it in and push the power button, it won't turn on. You know what I do with computers that can't turn on, right? See? Now it's fixed! The problem might have something to do with it missing all of its screws for some reason when I picked it up. So, the entire back cover just slides right off. It's so scary! I bet if I touch something I'm not supposed to, I'll probably get electrocuted to death. Ow. It's also really heavy. And it doesn't even have a handle that it can be picked up by. Unlike the next CRT Mac that I have. Fuck. I don't know if I trust this handle though. Up next is my 2001 iMac G3 Indigo that I also got for free. And just how did I get both of these computers for free? Well, I went to a local antique store and asked if they had any vintage Macs, and the owner goes to the back and came out with these. I was about to pay him, but he just told me to take these for free because he was trying to get rid of them. He also gave me a free cinema display, but it also didn't work. So I just recycled it at Best Buy since I already had a working one. But still, shout out to that very generous antique store owner. Now let's boot this baby up. His generosity knows no bounds, cause he also included a black Pro mouse. When it boots up, it has a password on it from the previous owner. But since the previous owner was such a genius, they set the password hint as the password. Nice! It's running Mac OS X 10.1 Puma, and you may have seen this thing featured in that Moving On video. Since this thing works perfectly fine, was for free, and very stylish, I love it! Unfortunately, the next Mac I was gonna show off is no longer with us. It was a 2003 17-inch iMac G4 running Mac OS X 10.2 Jaguar. The reason I don't have it today was because it was involved in a deadly head-on collision with last episode's Power Mac G4. I want to now take the time to explain why I did that. Since I already had a more iconic iMac G4, the one with the standard screen size, and I was running out of space in my room, I wanted to get rid of some Macs that were similar to each other, which also included the second Power Mac G4 I had. I probably should have sold it, or gave it away, but that's not in the spirit of this channel. I'm sorry to all the other vintage Mac collectors who are pissed off because I did something for the lows. After I finished filming that video, I recycled the computers at Best Buy, and the employee gave me a funny look when he saw the condition they were in. More info about the 17-inch iMac G4 is that I got it from Savers for $23. And it's not a total waste, cause it also included an Apple keyboard I didn't have yet. And the famous Harman Kardon speakers that came with all iMac G4s, which I also didn't have yet. And I'm keeping. I'm also keeping these parts I got out of the iMac and Power Mac before I recycled them. This next Mac needs no introduction because I already featured it way too many times in some of my other videos. The 1999 iBook G3 clamshell Blueberry. I originally installed Mac OS 9 on it, but then I upgraded it to Mac OS X 10.3 Panther. It's my favorite looking Mac, and for people who want an iBook clamshell of their own, the Blueberry is the most common color and the cheapest one online. Now, I know I said that I didn't want to buy my vintage Macs online, but I pretty much collected all the vintage Macs in my town, so I had to resort to eBay, where I got this laptop at an amazing deal of $45. Something I hate about it is that when people see this laptop, they say that Apple should make laptops that look like this again. I will say that you do not want that. It is way too thick and huge compared to a current MacBook with a similar screen size. Just look at those bezels. Ew. It is also way too heavy compared to what I have now. And the handle only slightly helps. My arm still wanted to die after I brought this to VidCon for no good reason and had to carry it around for several hours. Does Skype run on Macs?
Yes, of course it does.
Alright, could you help me install it on this? And cracks can appear out of nowhere, even without any abuse. This laptop has been through a lot with me. When I first got it, I had to replace its original hard drive. Then, I broke the Ethernet port due to thinking it was the USB port. Then, I bought a second Blueberry iBook clamshell and replaced its screen that had the splotch on it with the better one. Then I smashed the other iBook clamshell in a video, so this clamshell is now scarred for life. I also brought it into a coffee shop to type a script to see if anyone would react to it, but nobody cared. Also, why is it that every time I shut it down, it has a stroke? Speaking of vintage Apple laptops featured in my videos, lastly is my 2002 PowerBook G4. Have I ever mentioned how much I hate laptops that have manual latches? Finally. It is running Mac OS X 10.4 Tiger, and I also got it online for $40. This time through an app called Mercari. Sometimes you can find a good deal on there. Not sponsored. And it was a really good deal because this thing is in a really good condition. Well, except for this dent on the lid. Back in 2002, this must have been a pretty futuristic looking laptop, cause the bezels are almost the same size as my current MacBook's bezels. Wow. Look, Ma, no charger. Oh. Look, Ma, no charger. Another item I bought on Mercari was this exact same laptop, but it was $15 and for parts. But why? Well, the video that this laptop was featured in required me to have a working PowerBook to show off and a broken one to smash. Man, there's a lot of vintage Mac violence in this episode. At least the 4 parts laptop donated a hard drive, RAM, and an airport card to this iBook clamshell before its end, so it didn't die in vain. No, I shouldn't. And that does it for the vintage Macs. Now, let's get into some vintage Mac accessories. It's daytime already? We're gonna start with the boring accessories first. Airport Express from Savers for $10. Wired aluminum keyboard plus Apple Mighty Mouse plus Apple Remote bundle from Goodwill for $10. Looks like this was from one of the older aluminum iMacs. External Firewire iSight camera from a local thrift store for $10. The quality is so good! And finally, an Apple mouse from Goodwill for $3. Now here's the motherload of treasure I found at Savers on the same day. Mac OS 9, $5. Mac OS X 10.2 Jaguar, $10. Mac OS X 10.3 Panther, $10. Mac OS X 10.4 Tiger, $10. Aperture, $13. Aperture 2, $6. And iLife 11, $5. I looked through all of them and all of them seemed complete. I couldn't believe my luck that day, especially since boxed Mac OSs go for way more online and I got them for pretty cheap. Yeah. And it's funny how Savers charged the lowest price for Mac OS 9, but on eBay it's the most expensive out of all of them. I don't know if I should mention this, but I like that some of the Mac OSs are named after some very strong and big cats. And with that, I think we can conclude episode 3 of My Vintage Mac. Wait, I think we still have time for a bonus Mac! This Mac is no longer with us anymore, but I still feel like I should mention it. It was an iBook G3 Snow! I bought it off of eBay as untested, and if it fully worked, I would have put it in my collection. But if it was broken in any way, I would have destroyed it for your entertainment, because of how cheap and common those things are. And when I got it, the hard drive was dead. No problem, right? I can replace that. But wait, a screw on the bottom was stripped, so I couldn't get into it. So that iBook G3 Snow went goodbye. It didn't die in vain though, because with the order, I also got its original box. Now, it's used to hold accessories and parts for Apple laptops. And now that concludes episode 3 of my vintage Mac collection that I stayed up all night to make. I would give you a tour on how my new vintage Macs are set up in my room, but since I've neglected this series for a long time, I have collected even more vintage Macs that are meant for the next episode. The new ones are also strewn around my room, and I don't want to spoil them by doing a tour right now. But don't fret, I'm pretty sure the next episode will be coming sooner than you think. So, thank you guys for watching, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!
King, you kept me up all night!
Mom! I'm sorry!
I would have cared if you were doing the action with a girlfriend, but no, you were jerking off your stupid Macs! As punishment, I'm taking one of your vintage Macs!
Wait, that's not vintage! Hey guys! Before you leave the video due to this terrible quality, I have an explanation for all this. I wanted to see if I can edit on a vintage Mac, and I had to lower the video quality to make it possible. Don't worry, I'm only editing the introduction of this video on a vintage Mac, so after the intro, we'll go back to HD. And if you want to find out what vintage Mac and software I used, stick around until the end. I'll give you a hint. It's one of the Macs in this episode. Last episode, I said that this episode will be coming sooner than expected, but that was before I realized the views for this series are But I'm still passionate about old Macs when I'm not breaking them, so I will continue this series until I run out of vintage Macs to collect. Also, it's almost been a month into the school year, so I don't have anything else to vlog. Expect some more of my vintage Mac collections and Plain Rock toys during this time of year. Now, let's take a look at this episode's vintage Macs. What? I spent a long time making that intro sequence for the last episode, and I wanted to use it one more time. Now let's get to the Macs. First up, we have Apple Savior, the 1998 Bondi Blue iMac G3. Beautiful and strange when it came out, and it still is today. I bought it from a Mercari seller for $53, but it sustained some damage from shipping. It is still fully working, running Mac OS 9.2, and it looks like they didn't wipe the hard drive. To show how iconic and loved this thing is, this 20-year-old computer was featured in 2 recent movies I saw. First was Nerve, that came out in 2016, and Wreck-It Ralph 2, which is coming out in 2018. And I'm pretty sure this iMac is running almost the same OS as the iMac in the trailer. Also, can I say how unrealistic it is to connect this thing to the modern internet like in the movie trailer? I'm pretty sure the only webpage you can load is Google. Let's test that theory. Alright, I have this thing connected to our Wi-Fi router via Ethernet. And let's try to load some websites. Google? Okay, it can't even load Google. In conclusion, that old man needs to be put down or learn the capabilities of 20-year-old tech. Next up, I have a bundle of vintage Macs from one place. I put an ad up willing to pay for vintage Macs on Craigslist, and someone said I could have all of these for $175, or $43.75 each. First up, let's take a look at the 2002 Power Mac G4 mirrored drive doors. It is running Mac OS X 10.4 Tiger, which can be upgraded all the way to 10.5 Leopard. And it has a tramp stamp showing it was originally from a local college in town. Nothing special on the hard drive, and nothing special on the inside. Ooh. But on the outside, I'm pretty sure this speaker is busted. And the design is unique. What's the point of these holes? And there's even more holes on the back. No more condom grabber. And look at these beautiful mirrored drive doors. Fingerprints. And with me getting this model Power Mac G4, I now have all 3 Power Mac G4 models. Nice! Now I need the cube. Next up, an older similarly shaped and designed computer to the Power Mac G4, the 1999 Power Mac G3. Man, pro users must have been made fun of back in the day, cause this pro computer looks like a prop from Caillou. I like the color though.
Yes, this is a Dell monitor. Because since this thing only has a VGA output, this was the only VGA monitor I could get. It was only $250 at Savers, so whatever.
Gives you a heart attack for a second. Then it boots. It is running Mac OS X 10.1 Puma. Because it didn't come with a hard drive. So I used the hard drive I got out of the Power Mac G4 I destroyed, and I didn't wipe it before I put it in. But it still works with it. Even has all the previous data and apps. Inside, there's a bunch of shit installed. And I don't know what most of them do. There's also this annoying ribbon cable that I have to be careful of every time I close it. I also got this Bondi Blue Apple USB keyboard and a puck mouse with it. I've always wanted one of these, but I never saw any in thrift stores for some reason. And can anyone tell me what this button is for? Here's all the similar looking Power Macs lined up. Ladies, second to last, a 2000 iMac G3 DV Ruby.
Hey everyone, it's Ruby and welcome to my channel!
It is running Mac OS X 10.2 Jaguar. Just look at how Apple assumes you have the newer iMac. Planned obsolescence. And the disk drive is broken. When I insert in any CD, it won't read and it tries to eject it. But it won't eject all the way for some reason, so the disk goes back in and the cycle keeps on going. You're gonna need some tweezers for this. Lastly, my 1999 iMac G3 DV Tangerine. Look familiar?
Must be an on button somewhere. Press the Apple thing.
There's the power button. What? Okay, it never did that before. Okay, we're gonna try that again. Oh, the power button's stuck down. Great. I took the bottom cover off to see what the problem was, and it appears that it has been dropped sometime. And just realized the kickstand broke off on the bottom. Can it be booted up without its bottom? Okay, even with all that damage, it's still kicking. I upgraded it from Mac OS X 10.2 Jaguar to 10.3 Panther for a reason I will soon disclose. And I don't know if you can see, but the CRT is kinda rainbowish. Probably from being dropped. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, I also got this Apple branded microphone with the Craigslist deal. That has a cord that is way longer than necessary.
Hello? Hello? Testing.
Yeah, I know. 3 out of 5 Macs in this episode were iMac G3s. So I think I owe you guys a bonus Mac. Let's get a laptop in this episode. Here we have a 2003 iBook G4. Gives you a heart attack for a second. It is running Mac OS X 10.4 Tiger. This was from eBay for $35. Looks like it belongs to a school. Guess they finally upgraded. And
it has an Airport Extreme card, which makes it the oldest Mac I have that works with a modern Wi-Fi network.
5, 4.
Hate these plastic trackpads though. You just get used to the way smoother glass ones. Now, let's take a look at some vintage Apple accessories. This episode, we only have one, which is an Apple CRT studio display I got from Mercari for $39. And I guess it got damaged in shipping, because after it's been turned on for about 10 minutes, this happens. The only way to fix it is to leave it off for a while, but after that, it does it again. And digging through the monitor's menus don't help. I've been saying I wanted an Apple monitor with VGA for a while, but this ain't it, chief. It is also way too heavy and big, and with the problem, it's useless. So, what am I gonna do with it? I'm gonna take it apart first, remove the CRT, and when I put it back together, now it's a holder for my vintage Apple laptops. But what to do with the CRT? I want to be responsible and recycle it, so I took it to Best Buy and got charged $25 for recycling. I could have just thrown it in our trash bin for free, but no, I just had to be responsible. Fuck CRTs. So, what vintage Mac did I use to edit the intro of this video with? It was the iMac G3 TV Tangerine. And I used iMovie version 3. Here's a time lapse of that. Before I forget, here's a room tour of my newest vintage Macs. Here we have the Bondi Blue iMac G3 and the eMac. Yes, I mounted my vlog channel silver play button and YouTube letter on them because my vlog channel has been taken over by vintage Macs. And this iMac G3 houses the iMac G3 case, just in case when I need it. Power Mac G4 with the mirror drive doors. A single iBook clamshell kept outside to appreciate its beauty. In the closet we have vintage Apple boxes filled with vintage Mac accessories. A Dell monitor for VGA, this monitor for ADC, and this monitor for DVI. Also, the Mac monitor laptop storage. These Apple laptops are not as good looking, so we like to keep that hidden. And in the bedroom, because my vintage Macs are overflowing, in the closet are the rest of the iMac G3s. And finally, in the corner, the Power Mac G3, used for showing off some things and cable management. So with that, thank you guys for watching, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!